Okay, before I start, just full disclosure, you know I'm not in your district.
But we love you.
This is so wonderful, like more than you can ever even imagine. Because when I announced that I was running, people said, you'll never do this because nobody knows who you are. I think you know who I am. This is hard. This is not anything I ever imagined I would do. Never hoped for it, wished for it, dreamed about it. I never had any desire to run for elected office. But I've always had a desire to help people, to advocate for people who don't have a voice. Because people did that for me when I didn't have a voice. You know, what you see is the cleaned up, dusted off, finished version of me. But this is a journey that is still in the making, in the process, and the only reason I stand here before you is because people poured into me. People fed into my life. People saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, and they stood for me and spoke for me until I could stand and do it on my own. You know, if you're just now meeting me, if you've heard of me, and I've said it so many times before, I have been just the beneficiary of so much undeserved grace, where people who just said, I see something in that girl, and I want to do my part to help her. That's who we are as Americans. That's what this country is about. So I want to make sure that just like I was able to come out of all of those challenges, come out of teenage parent, come out of a home where there was addiction and poverty, and go on to school and have opportunities and become a teacher and become the National Teacher of the Year. Celebrated at the height of my profession by the President of the United States with my daughter looking at me. In a family where I was the first to go to college, where in the space of 8 years we became a second-generation college-educated family, and now she, who's also a teacher, stood there and watched her mother be honored by the President in the White House. That's the America I know. And I want to make sure that I do everything in my power to make sure those opportunities exist for anybody who's willing to work for them. So this idea that we have to pick and choose, these fear tactics where, you know, either it's America first, or we welcome immigrants. It's we have a thriving economy, or we protect the environment. Where it's we have safe schools, or we arm teachers, is not who we are. And I have a voice, and I have a platform, and I have a heart that is full and an obligation to speak up for those people who can't speak for themselves, just like so many people did for me. I'm going to tell you just two really quick things that I know just has really shaped me and prepared me in every way to do the work that I have to do, that we have to do together. Part of the reason I was named National Teacher of the Year is because I really worked with kids and obligated them. You don't get to complain in my class. We are part of the solution. You see a problem, we work together and fix it. My students in my club, we called it the Hope Club, which meant helping out people everywhere. These kids worked in our community. We raised $100,000 for the American Cancer Society. We built houses with Habitat for Humanity. We worked with the Children's Dyslexia Center. We did everything. These kids who are on the receiving end of aid their whole life, I said to them, no matter who you are, you have the ability and the capacity to help someone else. And they believed it. And they believed it. And they were doing their part to help someone else. And getting confidence and deciding that they could change the narrative and change their life stories, much like I did. So for them to see what was happening right before their eyes made them question what I was telling them existed out there. I promised these kids what was on the other side of this. We have to work hard to keep that intact. When I was Teacher of the Year, I traveled around the country, I traveled around the world, and there was something that happened when I was in Tunisia in November of 2016. A woman looked at me on the Wednesday morning after the election, and she said, "What have you done?" I had been in this country for weeks, and she said, "What have you done?" And I jumped right into teacher mode, and I tried to explain to her the difference between the popular vote and electoral college. And she said, "You are here on a diplomatic mission in a country that is 90% Muslim. How do you elect this person as your leader?" And for the first time in my life, it occurred to me that we have Americans that are traveling all over the world, that are on mission work, who are working in universities. We have students who have to respond to that question every day. They're not there under the American flag as soldiers. They are there as American citizens, proud to represent this country, and they have to answer that question every day. What have you done? Because the world is beginning to question who we are. That's not okay. That's worth fighting for, and lucky for you, the Democrats have given you a tremendous ticket to choose from, and not just because I'm on it, but we have we have some great people. I don't know everybody in the room, but Sean is here. I see Melissa Osborne. I've had mayors come up to me, people here who just believe in the work that we have to do. So what I'll say to you is, don't go out on November 6th and vote because you're angry, because you're frustrated, because you're fighting back against something, because you're holding the line, because you are desperate and carved out and you don't know what else to do. I want you to think about this room tonight, and I want you to go in the ballot and vote on November 6th for what you believe we're about to do, for who you know we can become, for the possibility of who we are, for what happens when we lift our voices and speak for people who don't have a voice, for what happens when we work together and say to families, this is not who we are. I am so sorry that this is happening to you in this state, in this country, because this is not who we are. And you have a room full of people. You have a state, a community full of people who shares those values, who share those beliefs, who are willing to fight for you, because we know you can't do it for yourself.
Thank you.
That is the America that you We are just, every one of us has a voice. Every one of us has power within us. Every one of us has value. Every one of us gets to be here. All of our stories are important. Diversity of thought, experience, background, ethnicity, religion, all of that weaves our landscape. Don't ever underestimate the power that lives in you and your ability to be the change you wish to see. Everybody's talking about a wave. Let me tell you what that wave looks like when you break it down. It's a million tiny votes. It's every single one of us putting one drop in, making sure that the light in this room outshines any of the darkness that we see, that the promise of a brighter future that I told all of those hundreds of kids that came before me, that I sent out into the world that exists, remains for them, that the America that this family came here to find remains for them, and that we keep those opportunities available for anybody who seeks them. I can't do that by myself. None of us can do that. So thank you for inviting me up north, for receiving me so warmly, for believing in this candidacy, for trusting me with your voice. Connecticut's a small state, but we make a lot of noise. And I think they hear us. I think people hear us. So I just would be so honored if you do whatever you can to engage your friends, to talk in your community, to remind people that we are the party that understands with fidelity that government should work for the people. I know what happens when government works. I am what happens when government works. Let's make sure it works for everyone. Thank you so much.